Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gayle Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter.
Hi, everybody. This is Gayle Carson, and you're going to get me for this show today because I thought I'd talk to you about podcasting. A lot of people have asked about it. It seems to be growing by leaps and bounds, and a lot of people are not really sure what it is or how to do it. So I thought, well, this would be a perfect time to talk about it. So first of all, let me tell you why I can talk about it. As you know, these are radio shows that I do. But what my producer does is after a month, he kind of morphs them into podcasts, and then they appear everywhere. I mean, we are on iHeartRadio, Society Bites, Radio Air Network, SOB Radio Network, Spotify, just all over the place. And those are podcasts, and they're there for a very, very long time, if not forever. So podcasts are something that you can do for a couple of different reasons. Number one, you might have a cause, a charity, a foundation that you're passionate about, and you want to get the message out. So that would be one way to do it, is by letting people be aware through podcasting. A second might be that you want to promote your business, and one of the ways to do that is through podcasting, letting people know what you do, how you do it, what you have for sale, if you're having specials, if you're doing something that's a little bit different, or you may even be holding an event and you want to invite people to it. And so by getting it out on a podcast is a way to do it. So you can use it for those particular reasons. Just remember, there's a lot of podcasts out there. And just because you do a podcast doesn't mean that anyone's listening to it. And that is the key to everything. I think now there are probably, I don't even know how many, I don't even want to say, but in the hundreds of thousands of podcasts. But there are probably 60% of them, if not more, that have been recorded once, twice, maybe 10 times. And then people stop doing them, and then they're just out there, but nobody's really listening to them because it's not new, fresh material. They just stopped doing it because they didn't get an immediate reaction. And you won't get an immediate reaction. You need to build up your following. You have to have something interesting to say every single time you get on air. It isn't just, well, I think I'm going to talk about it, what a beautiful day it is. And it isn't just that I'm going to talk about my foundation or my charity. It's really, if you're going to talk about a cause or a foundation, then you have to have a new angle every single time you talk about it. Or maybe you bring somebody on as a guest who can contribute in some way. But, excuse me, doing a podcast is something that is really important to look at your not only your demographics, but who is your perfect listener? Who are you doing this for? What do they love? What do they hate? What do they struggle with? What are their pain points? And are you providing them with this help? So let's talk about the different kind of podcasts that you might do. Now, in my particular case, because we start off as a radio show, I interview people. So you might interview people with a particular theme, or if you have, again, a particular thrust that you want to get out there. Maybe you're a healer, or maybe you're someone who is a social activist, or maybe you want to save the planet, or you want to, do something with climate change. You can interview people who are experts in this. It can be scientists. They can be people who are doing it. They can be just a whole bunch of different people. However, it can also be topic-based if that's what you want to do. In other words, you could have a different topic each time, Or if you want to be known for something, you can do it on, for example, supposing you're a foodie. Let's say you're a foodie. Maybe you talk about the different recipes that you create, or maybe there are certain recipes that you follow that you like more than anything else, or particular chefs. Sorry, Joe. Or there might be people who are, people that you could interview who want to be chefs, or people who are going to culinary school, or any of these kinds of things. I mean, food gives you so much. I mean, you could have a Mediterranean diet, you can have the keto diet, you can have a vegan, you can have raw, you can have protein-based. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. But again, topic-based is another way of doing a podcast. You may also want to do a Q&A kind of thing. You'd have to set it up so people would be able to call on you, and you'd have to be able to set that up on your computer electronically to be able to get people to call in and ask you questions. Or another way you can do it is if you have a website or you have email that you want to work with, have them send you questions which you answer on the air. That's another way of doing it. So it could be a whole bunch of different things that you're doing. It could be based on holidays, seasons, variety, whatever you particularly want. But again, the most important thing is who is going to listen. So when you figure out what it is that you want to talk about, I would go to a few people who you know or who you don't know, but just do a little survey and find out if what you're going to talk about is of interest to them. Now, let me tell you how my shows came about. I had been doing a women in business show for Entrepreneur Magazine, and I really interviewed some really big names, and it was very successful. But then Entrepreneur Magazine was sold, and they got rid of their broadcasting division. So I was without a show for probably a year or two, and then I met Joe, my producer, at an event, and he said that he was part of this radio station. And so I just went over to him later and said, would you be interested? And of course, I know he thought, who is this woman who's coming up to me? Because I'm sure everybody says, I want to be on radio. And so I said, well, yeah, this is what I did. And so he gave me a chance, and the show did well. And he gave me another chance with my Living Regret-Free show, and that did well. And then, of course, he knows that I was very interested in women 50 plus. So we started one on that, and then it turned into my own network, the SOBradionetwork.com. And now we have other hosts who are over 50 doing shows for women over 50. So it turned into this whole thing, which was just from that one beginning. So who is going to listen to you, and who is interested? And it may not matter to you. In other words, if you, for instance, are someone who is active in collecting stamps, maybe there's a very small market for you, but the people who are in that particular field are very interested. So whether you have 100 listeners or 1,000 listeners or 10,000 listeners, they're all interested in what you have to say because you're talking about something that is in their realm. Some may be doing it professionally. Some may be doing it as a hobby. But you can do very well with a show that is targeted to a very small group if you're not looking to have these mammoth amounts of listeners. But again, you've got to have the right equipment. Now, some people work from their computers. Some people use various kinds of microphones. I'm using a Logitech, but you can use a lot of different things. You can go on Amazon, find a whole bunch of different kind of mics that would be good for you for under $200 that would work very well. And again, you can have recording software. You can use Audacity. You can use GarageBand. That's for Mac only, but you can use a lot of different things. And then, of course, the way you interview, we interview through Skype, but it could be Skype. It could be Zoom. It could be GoToMeeting. It could be a lot of different things. But again, that's up to you. Let me just say to you that I am a technophobe. And if I had to depend on me to do all of this, it would never happen. Luckily, I have a great producer in Joe, and he is just wonderful. The way he edits everything, the way he gets it on air, the way he promotes it, all of that is done for me. So I'm very fortunate because a lot of people don't have that. But it's important for you also to have the guests that have something to say, that are interesting and interested in being on the show. So, for example, the first thing you're going to do, and let me say, this is really what takes the time in podcasting: getting your guests, making sure that they show up, making sure that they have something really great to share. And then, of course, you need to get that on whatever format you're using, wherever you're hosting it, because people are going to want to know what is the show about as to whether they tune in or not. Now, if you are specializing, for example, you are a stamp show, people are going to tune in because they always want to know what's the latest going on and what's the greatest stamp to collect, or what's coming up, and so forth and so on. But in a variety kind of a show where I have, for example, women in business, but they're all different kinds of businesses. Some are entrepreneurs, some are working as senior managers for larger companies. You may want to see, is this a subject I'm interested in? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm just getting started. Are they going to tell me about the things I need to know? Are they going to talk about the legal things I need to be aware of? Are they going to talk about the obstacles I'm going to face? Those kinds of things. In the Living Regret-Free show, gosh, I have all kinds of different people. I have healers, I have shamans, I have people who have gone through hell and back, people who have overcome alcoholism, drugs, people who have gone through all kinds of divorces, illnesses, people who have lost children. I mean, and how they have gotten back to living a happy life and a worthwhile life is all done with different kinds of people. So I interview both men and women on that show. And then, of course, for my Women Over 50 show, I do that because there are so many women who believe they become invisible once they hit that magic age of 50. And I am far beyond 50, I can tell you that. So I still am very active, and I have to tell you, I talked to my sister the other day. She just celebrated her 86th birthday and just received another Life Achievement Award. Both of us are very lucky. I've gotten, I think, 3 or 4 Life Achievement Awards, and she's gotten, 3, 4, 5, something like that. And she's very active in the community and what she does. So age has nothing to do with what you're doing or how you're feeling. It's really your attitude, your mindset, all of that. So that's what we hope to talk about in the Women Over 50 show. So you just have to decide, what kind of approach do you want? And can I devote the time, and is this going to be consistent? If you do a podcast, some people do podcasts every single day. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. But then again, they may only do 5 minutes or 10 minutes. My shows are almost 30 minutes. So that's a little different. But if you are going to do a podcast, you need to continue to do that podcast, not just once in a while. It's got to be, if your podcast comes out every Tuesday, then every Tuesday it's got to be there. If your podcast comes out every day at noon, and it's got to be there every day at noon. However you set it up, but that's how you get your listeners. That's how you get your following. Now, you can promote it on social media. You can promote it all over the place. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't promote it, but the whole point is you've got to let people know about it, and you need to be consistent. And you've got to decide, what kind of time do I want to devote to this? Because, I have to tell you, to do my shows, probably because I do 12, it takes me about 20 hours a month to do everything. Now, can you afford to do 20 hours a month? Then you have to ask yourself, okay, where am I going to put it? Am I going to put it in iTunes? Am I going to put it in Google Play? What am I going to do with it? And you probably should at least have, I would say, 4 or 5 in a can before you publish them, because that way, at least if something goes wrong, you've got, 3 or 4 others to fall back on until you record again. But it's really, really important to promote your podcast, let people know where it is, what it's about, why you're doing this. And I think sometimes the why you're doing it is just as important as doing it, especially if you've got what we talked about earlier, the cause, the charitable foundation. People gravitate to that. Again, when I do women in business, I really want entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs to listen to what these women have to say about what it took to start. And even when you come from a big company, it's even harder sometimes, because at a big company, you've had a lot of people doing things for you. And when you start off as an entrepreneur, you do everything from taking out the garbage to answering the telephone to doing the computer work, etc. And of course, you can farm all of this out. But again, your resources may be limited in the beginning. And the same thing when people come to my Living Regret Free show, I hope they get a hint on how to have a better day. That's what it's all about. And I hope that I give hope to these women 50 plus that it's not over until it's really all over. So how do you get guests? That's, I guess, a key thing. You first of all need to start looking around, because you probably know people who would be perfect for your podcast, or they wouldn't be your friends and they wouldn't have your interests. So look around the people that you know. Who have you met at clubs that you belong to? If you belong to a chamber, or something like Kiwanis or something like that, Rotary Club, are there people in there who would be interesting for you to interview? And I happen to be, this is interesting, I'm an icon for the New Media Summit. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Steve Olsher puts it on, and he's going through a promotion right now. So if you're interested in this, you should send me an email to Gayle, Gayle Carson 13 at gmail.com, and I'll send you the link, because you can get a directory of podcasters, 670 podcasters. But we are 40 called icons, and we go there. It's really interesting how he does this. We go there, and 8 of us are on the stage at any one time, and it's almost like The Voice. We have our back to the people who are pitching us. He invites 150 people to come. There's never more than 150, because he doesn't want a crowd. He wants everybody to get their time, and he wants us all to be able to listen to them. So they pitch to us for actually a minute and a half. They have 2 minutes, but he tells them to pitch for a minute and a half, and then we give them 30 seconds worth of feedback. If we did turn around or we didn't turn around, or why we liked them or why we didn't like them. And most of the time it isn't that we don't like them, but they're not appropriate for our show. And that's another thing. If you are on the other end and you want to be a guest on a podcast, are you appropriate for that show? I mean, there are things that I would absolutely not be appropriate for, and others that I would. So you have to really say who would be good for me. But anyway, at this event, when we like them, when we hear something that we like, we turn our chairs around like The Voice, and that means we're interested in them, and we write it down on a little card, and they all have envelopes, and we put the cards in the envelopes and tell them to either contact us or we'll contact them, depending on if we have their information. And if they decide, because they have heard what the 40 of us do, some are, for example, Christian podcasts, some are healing podcasts, some are very spiritual. So if they hear something that they think is for them, then they actually put their card in our little packet that's up there, because all the podcasters have their packets. And for example, I have a lot of people who put their little card in mine and says, yes, I'm over 50. So they think they'll be perfect for that show. So, but that's something many of you might be interested in. It's the New Media Summit, and it's being held in San Diego in September. and I will be there. So I'd love to meet any of you who might show up. But if you are interested, just drop me an email, GayleCarson13@gmail.com, and I'll go ahead and I'll send you the information. So anyway, build relationships. That's the important thing. Many of you may go to conventions or conferences or are active in your trade association. There must be people there who would be perfect to be interviewed. Maybe there are some city or county officials who you'd like to have on your show, or there might be a particular debate going on, and they want to be heard for their viewpoint. So there's ways in that particular instance. Also, if there are speakers at these conferences, it's not only the people you meet at the conferences, who are also attending, who might be wonderful guests, but any of the speakers who are on stage or in the breakout sessions, they are perfect. They love to be on podcasts because it gets their image out further. So that would be a perfect time to approach them, because they would love to do it. And that would be another place might be to look at who are authors, whose books have you read that you like, or even go on Amazon and see what they have. Amazon has all these different authors and books, and then you can go ahead and take a look at those, and they would be perfect people to interview as well. And authors love to be on a podcast because it makes them available to sell more books and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of ways for you to get involved with this. And, I would say when you talk about this, the other thing that everybody wants to know, and this is not an easy question or answer, is how do you monetize your podcast? Well, you're not going to get anybody interested until you've been on air for at least 6 months, because you have to show a following. So maybe it's people, if you are, for example, in a particular industry, maybe it's products that would be perfect for that particular industry. You might look for sponsorships, people who want to have their particular product or service advertised and heard. You might, for example, go through some affiliates, people who might make some money by recommending you. So there's all kinds of different places that you might be able to monetize your podcast. But the important thing is you need to be interesting. You need to have something to say. You need to be able to get people to tune in every week so that they are people who say, this is somebody interesting that I really, want to follow and I really want to know about. So that's an important thing. And you have to be there every single week or every single day. They need to know. Or you might say, look, I'm going to do this twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays. And on Tuesday and Friday at 12 o'clock, my podcast is going to be there. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, folks. But it's a growing industry. It's something that people are talking about now. It's a great way to get your message out there. But it takes patience. It takes time. And you've got to be reliable. You've got to be the kind of person that is there all of the time. I think that this world of communication that we are in today is so meaningful and so perfect for this that I can't begin to tell you. That's why one of the things I really would like to recommend is that New Media Summit, because you're going to come in contact with peers. You're going to come down in contact with professional podcasters. You're going to see what it takes. You're going to see what they're looking for. And I have to tell you that these 39 other people that I am there with are wonderful, kind people. They're not mean people. I've never really had them say, no, I can't use you because you're terrible. They're just not like that. They're behind you 100%. So really, that's what I wanted to tell you about podcasting. If you have any questions, just go ahead and send me an email. I mean, it doesn't have to be about the summit. It could be anything on podcasting or the radio shows for that matter. Also, I have a new program coming out that you might be interested in. It's on how to get on TV. It's called Get on TV. Very simple. It's short, sweet. It's 5 modules. Then we have a bonus module on podcasts and radio. But the most important thing is how to get on TV. We show you how to put your segment proposals together, how to who you're supposed to contact, how you do your pitches, what you're supposed to wear, how you use props, even how you work with animals. All of those things are really, really important. So just get in touch with me if you have any questions on the TV show, the TV formatting, or the instructions on how to get on TV. If you're interested in podcasting or any of that, that's what I'm here for, and I'd love to be able to help you with it. So I hope you also tune into my shows, Women in Business, Living Regret-Free, and SOB Radio. Those are my 3 shows, and I'd love to have you as listeners and followers on all of them. You may not be able to, but we'd love to have you. So again, and my website is spunkyoldbroad.com. If you'd like to go there, sign up for my newsletter. You'll get it every Monday. We also have a quiz there that'll help you sort out who you are and what you should be doing. So we've got a lot of things there for you. We've got free articles and so forth. I mean, just a whole bunch of stuff. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it clarified a little bit what podcasting is. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.